Elizabeth, could you please lead us for Pledge of Allegiance?
All right, everybody stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Barr, could you do the roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Councilmember Felder,
Here.
Councilmember Lowe,
Here.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Here.
Mayor Dean.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Today we didn't have any closed section meeting. Next, I would like to discuss about approval of our agenda. Do we have anything to change? It's the order. Council colleagues and the staff. Looks none.
I move to approve. Second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda number 1, comments from the public. Please approach to the podium. Keep your speech 3 minutes or less. Thank you. Okay, looks like none. Okay, that is. All right. Let's move to agenda number 2, meeting dedication.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am saddened, yet have wonderful memories of Rosemarie Pedronzini. It's interesting. Well, I'll go through. Passed away on April 30th, 2022. She was, yes, passed away on April 30th, 2022. She won, I think it was shy of her 86th birthday. Rosemarie was born at Stanford Lane Hospital in San Francisco to Gust and Rosa Karabocious. The family moved to Sonoma when Rosemarie was 10. She began working at her father's store, Gus's Fountain at Four Corners. She graduated from Sonoma Valley High School. Later in life, married this wonderful man, Ben Pedronzini, who taught her how to ride a bike. He later became her husband. They were married for more than 60 years. Ben passed away in 2020, and the couple had one daughter, Roseanne. This is tough for me. Ben, well, she loved dancing, and she was actually known for riding on her son-in-law's Harley Davidson, which is pretty cool. She loved her community and donated her time to the Sonoma League of Historic Preservation and Relay for Life, and a fundraiser for the American Cancer Society. She also fought against Rosewood, the developers who wanted to build above Mountain Cemetery. Roseanne and Rob, in addition to her daughter and son-in-law, Roseanne and Bob Sampson of El Verano, Rosemarie is survived by her brother, who is here today, Jim Karabocious, the gentleman with the black shirt. I'm so glad he came, of Sonoma. Her nieces and nephew, cousins. She is preceded in death by her husband, parents, and brother, Louis Karabocious. Rosemarie almost had a cult here in Sonoma. She would come in and speak her mind, say what she thought of us. She liked us, say what she'd say whatever she wanted about the city of Sonoma, what we were doing wrong. And her loving husband, similar to my husband, was always in the background, but he was a great guy. And she would get up, his name was Benny. And Rosemarie would get up at that podium and say, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but damn it. And she'd say, I know Benny's listening and he's going to be mad at me. And Benny was here with her in spirit, and sometimes he actually attended. If you could imagine, people loved it when she showed up. And we'd go, okay, Rosemary, thank you. And she'd go, I'm not finished. But she was the greatest. She is really going to be missed. She's done some wonderful things here in the city, and she's someone who's really missed, and I want to have Jim and the Zabbonis over and Roxanne and her husband for a dinner or something, just to say hello to you. So she leaves behind her son-in-law, Bob Sampson, her daughter, Roxanne, and of course, Jim Carabochos. So I am dedicating this evening to Rosemarie Pedronzini. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other dedication? No. Okay. All right. Let's move to agenda number 3, presentations. Agenda number 3.1, proclamation in honor of the Asia, America, and the Pacific Islander Heritage Month in the city of the Sonoma. The May was chosen by America, actually, 30 years ago. President George Bush, he extended the AAPI in a week to the whole month and sign it, and it become the law. So each May in America, we always celebrate the contribution made by AAPI group. Today, I'm honored. I want to present a proclamation at a request an AAPI coalition of North Bay. Today we have the Alexander and also Phyllis. You are the representative. Thank you for coming. Do you want to say something? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us this evening to honor API Heritage Month here in Sonoma, and hopefully all throughout all of our other cities and towns throughout this county. What is also very special too about this is to have your very own Mayor Ding, your first, to my knowledge, the first API mayor for the city of Sonoma, and to even acknowledge the history that has stemmed from not just the Sonoma Valley, but even from the county overall. Our proclamation was was also highlighting on all of the history from Chinese Americans, Japanese American, Filipino American, and the whole representation of the Pan-Asian continent, who have made their contributions here to the Sonoma Valley. And each time I look out in the vineyards, and including these ones out here in the Sonoma Valley, I think of our very own Chinese American ancestors who brought up, this horticulture, who made wine country possible in a lot of ways, alongside with many other people of color to cultivate that. And even with the ugly history that we have in the past, the use of words like coolie and indentured slaves that were brought over from China and India, and a lot of the forced labor that was brought upon and inflicted on Asian Americans of that time, and to develop and come to where we are today, and to not only celebrate us in May, but hopefully and just to celebrate everything that we do to bring society forward. So thank you very much to Mayor Ding and the rest of the council for having us. And maybe Phyllis, I don't know if you want to share a few words. Just to reintroduce us, I'm Elizabeth Escalante, one of the co-chairs of the API Coalition of the North Bay, who helped to draft the proclamation as you see it is today. I'm also a member of the Filipino American National Historical Society. And Phyllis, can I introduce you? Yeah.
Yeah, come.
And of course, Phyllis Taiji, also one of our board members from the API Coalition, and a board member of the Japanese American Citizens League. So we're proudly representing tonight for the celebration.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Right now, I want to read aloud today's proclamation. A little bit longer. Let me try. Okay. The City of the Sonoma Proclamation in honor of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Whereas, on the occasion that the month of the May 2022 was chosen to celebrate the Asian and the Pacific Islanders heritage in United States to commemorate the immigrants of the first Japanese to United States on May 7th, 1843. And to mark the May 10th, 1869 anniversary of completion of the transcontinental railroad built with the backbreaking labors nearly 20,000 Chinese immigrants. And whereas Asian American and Pacific Islanders play a significant role in the development of the dynamic and pluralistic American society, with 32 Asian ethnic groups and 77 Asian languages in California. Violence against Asian American and Pacific Islanders, along with the indigenous and people of the United States and the black and the brown people, existed at the founding of this country and regrettably continue to this day. And whereas the role of the Asian American in Sonoma County has largely gone unrecorded, and especially concerning the contributions made in agriculture, with the help of approximately 200 Chinese laborers, Buena Vista Winery was built in 1857 as the first California premier winery. After the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, Japanese farmers built successful family farms and contributed statewide to create successful strawberry and other farming techniques. And whereas we recognize that U.S. Congress in 2012 and California State Legislature in 2014 adopted resolutions of the formal apologies to Chinese Americans for enactment of the Chinese Exclusion Act 1882 and similar laws. We, the City of the Sonoma, officially apologize for the unjust mistreatment of the Chinese immigrants living and working in the city and the valley of the Sonoma during the early time of the period. And whereas we support Asian American Pacific Islander Coalition for North Bay to celebrate cultural, empower community, and promote positive changing of AAPI communities in the North Bay. We support Sonoma Sister Cities Association, Penglai Committee's proposal of the Wine Country Chinese Legacy Project to commemorate the contributions of the Chinese to the wine industry in Sonoma Valley by building a Chinese pavilion team in Depot Park of Sonoma. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Jack Dean, Mayor of the City of the Sonoma, am honored to commemorate the valuable contributions of the Chinese immigrants, along with the special contributions of the all Asia Americans and the Pacific Islanders who were underdocumented and unrecorded in California history. We take pleasure in celebrating the diverse and vibrant cultures that an Asia, America, Pacific Islanders communities bring to our city and the Sonoma County. Jack Dean, Mayor. I would like to present to or I invite all on the council member come here and take a picture.
Would you mind taking one of my phone too, please? Sure. That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
That too. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
I saw you, Kelso. Am I in the right seat? I forgot my iPad. I have the wrong one.
It was a long time ago.
Not much.
I never forget.
Nice job.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much.
That was
all
great.
my colleagues
Yeah,
and
thank you.
staff and all other residents. Especially thank you to the Elizabeth and the Phyllis. You all represent our AAPI community. Thank you.
And Mayor Ding, may I say that
Yes.
you did a wonderful job on Saturday with the presentation at the library.
Oh,
So if
yes.
you were not able to attend, perhaps, I don't know, maybe it's on YouTube, I don't know. But he did, it was a historical presentation about the Chinese community history in Sonoma Valley. I learned a lot. The room was packed too. Everybody, there wasn't an empty chair, and so you're doing a lot of good things, and we're really proud of you.
Thank you for your support and also understanding. Yeah, thank you. Let's move on to our next agenda. Agenda number 3.2, introduction of the new city staff, acting city manager.
Mayor Ding and City Council. So I'm really pleased to introduce Kathy Bartondale. She's our new administrative assistant in Public Works. So she started with us on April 25th in our Public Works Department. She's a Sonoma native and comes to us with over 37 years administrative experience. She started when she was 10. And most recently, she worked as the Wine Country This Week magazine office manager. She worked there for 20 years, and she's also had stints at the Sonoma Index Tribune, Albertsons, and Adobe Drug. Kathy lives in the city of Sonoma with her husband, Greg, who's also here. And she has 2 adult children, Tanner Gore and a daughter, Whitney Gore. So welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sue. Let's move on. Agenda number 4, consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendars are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. Our staff and city, anything you want to move, pull out? Oh, no. All right. So we'd like to take the motion.
I move that we. Oh, right.
Can allow public comment on
Oh, yes.
all the items.
Yeah. Right now, I open to the public. If any other comments for agenda number 4. Looks like none. Okay. Let me close the public comments. So we take the motion.
I move that we approve the consent calendar, specifically items 4.2 through 4.7.
And second?
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda number 5, public hearing. Today, we don't have public hearing. Agenda number 6, regular calendar. Agenda number 6.1, discussion, consideration, and a possible action to approve a resolution and an employment agreement appointing the Sue Casey as interim city manager, effective the May 18, 2022.
Thank you, Mayor Ding, members of the council, David Ruderman, Assistant City Attorney. Before you this evening is a contract with Ms. Casey to acknowledge her as the interim city manager. She's currently serving as the acting city manager. And under the Brown Act, any council action on the salaries or fringe benefits of executives of local agencies have to be obviously on the council business section of a regular meeting. And a short summary of the matter has to be provided. So that's what I'm here to do, and happy to answer any questions. The contract is essentially identical to the previous one, other than the change in the name from acting to interim. The annual salary, as before, is $215,900 a year. The only other changes were the inclusion of a $500 a month automobile allowance, $7,500 a year in deferred compensation, and 20 days of admin leave. But otherwise, the benefits are the same as enjoyed by management. That is my summary of the employment agreement before you. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions? No? Do you have any questions? Okay. Yeah. I want to say, thank you, Sue. You stand up and help the city. And during the past months, you did wonderful work. All our city council and colleagues very much appreciate. And also, I would say congratulations for the agreement effective today. And in the motion, we want to. Oh, public comments,
I
please.
always did that
Yeah.
myself, Jeff. Not to worry.
Oh, I got used to. Right now, I open to the public for the comments. Looks like none. Okay. I will close the public comments. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Who's second?
I second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Wonderful.
And I think Mrs. Casey, you know how happy I was. I gave you a big hug. I am so relieved. You've done so many wonderful things in the last, as you've been as acting city manager. I really, really appreciate. And I'm a hard one. to get
We all
trust.
know. We all know.
And I'm a hard one to get trust from, and I tell you, if I gave you a hug, that meant I really, really meant it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you,
That's
Sue.
true, yeah.
It's obviously
you
been a
all.
challenging time, and thank
Yeah.
you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's move to agenda number 6.2. Discussion, consider, and take possible action to adopt an ordinance amending Sonoma Municipal Code Title II-Administration and Personnel by 1, repealing and Chapter 2.48 Community Services and Environment Commission, and then adding a new Chapter 2.48 Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Committee, and 2, adding a new Chapter 2.50 Climate and Action Committee, and amending the title 12-Streets and Sidewalks by amending Section 12.18.020 S and the trees ordinance, and finding that proposed amendment are exempt from California Environmental Act, (CEQA), under the Section 15061B3 General Rule of CEQA, and the guidance and acting the city manager.
Thank you. I want to make one point of clarification. We are introducing the ordinance this evening, and we have this in the title, but I think the language in the staff report says differently. But anyway, now I'm going to turn it over to Director. I know your name. Store. I was up till 3, so
Good old, what's his name?
D2.
D2.
Thank you, Sue. Mayor Ding, council members, David Storr, Planning and Community Services Director. I'll be brief. I won't go through the information that's by letter in the staff report, but we are introducing or conducting the first reading. I think that's the nomenclature of the day. But your council may recall that on March the 2nd, you directed staff to provide code amendments, initially to dissolve the CSEC and to create the new Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Committee, and also create a Climate Action Committee. You also directed that the responsibilities and duties of the Tree Committee be blended in with the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Committee. And the ordinance before you tonight does all of that, and also adds the work to build upon the Recreation Task Force to provide your council with input regarding comprehensive parks and recreation projects. Your council may recall that that particular body was to sunset at the end of this year. The Pros Committee will have 7 members, 5 each appointed by you all, 1 arborist and 1 youth member. The same with the Climate Action Committee, but it will have 6 members. 5 will be appointed by your council each, and then 1 youth member as well. The responsibilities of both of the committees are in your staff report. I won't go through each one of those, but I do request that you make one change to bullet number 1 under the Climate Action Committee. It's redundant. It's basically the last part of the sentence. So the new language will read, if you're following along, the responsibility of the Climate Action Committee will be to the development, updating, implementation, and communication of the city's climate action plan, period. The reason for that is the last part of that sentence is the bullet number 2. So apologies for that. So again, tonight we request that you request that you would introduce the ordinance or conduct the first reading. This concludes staff's report. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a question for staff. Is there some reason that we have chosen to drop the word commission and insert committee, especially for pros?
Other than that, there may be just different nomenclature in your code, but no, it could be a commission, but I think for brevity, it was to go with committees on both
'Cause
parts.
I'm curious, we're eliminating another commission, and I would have thought that we would have come up with a replacement commission.
Well, you can certainly, that's council's prerogative. You can also create the Climate Action Commission too.
Well, I can see that might be a committee, but as it had been in the past, but anyway, just a question, and I'd leave it up to the rest of the council.
Sure. Yes.
Thank you, David, for that, and thank you for all your hard work, and Sue, on this. I think this is great for the city. My question relates to, so this is the introduction of the ordinance, and then at the next meeting will be the second reading.
That'll be the adoption. I think that's just the new names now that we call it. First is introduction. The second reading is the adoption. So we use
So that'll be on June 1st.
that is correct. It'll be on the consent.
So then how quickly can we appoint and get these commissions going and doing all their great work? Like, we can advertise on June 1st?
Well, I would start advertising after you actually adopt the ordinance, so Thursday. I
Oh,
would put out
after
a-
this, so, okay,
Well,
great.
no, not tomorrow, but after you adopt the ordinance, when you have the piece, because you're not gonna go into effect for 30 days from that. So in between that time, from the adoption, so immediately upon adoption, the next day I'll send out a press release and open up the recruitment for that, and then you can have someone in place. It probably would be July or August. It would be
So our
first
first
meeting in August.
meeting in August, we could start appointing. And then perhaps they could start meeting by September?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they could meet in August.
Yes, Sandra.
On some of our other committees or commissions, we have at least one person or only one person who lives outside the city limits. In these particular cases, you have that applies to the youth member. I'm glad to see youth members, first of all. I think that's about a long time coming. And the other non-voting member, the tree person or whatever. Was there any thought given to having one person who could live outside the city limits as part of the committee, as we have on like the planning commission and design review?
Certainly, you could expand the goal is to have each council member appoint somebody from the community. Then, in some other cases, you can have additional members or alternates, if you will, that could be from the valley. But I think the direct request, I think, was let's get base core, one person per council member, and then add to that as you desire. So you can certainly expand it, I think. Now, I don't know that each council member would want to give up their appointment for somebody in the city, for somebody out, to keep the number at 7, at least in the case of the pros. But we can certainly do that if that's the council's prerogative, to do something like that.
I think it's a good idea, personally. I think we've been talking a lot about being very inclusive. That's why I really commend the inclusion of a youth member. But, we've taken on issues that are outside the city limits. Everybody comes into the city for schools and for shopping and for whatever. I wouldn't have, certainly I'll go with the direction of the council, but it just seems like it would be in keeping with what we have in our other commissions, and so just wondered why it wouldn't be there.
Yes.
I agree with Councilmember Lowe. My only question, or I think this is true, I'm just not sure, but when we I think in 2017 or 18, when we redid the appointments to commissions, I think there's a blanket policy that applies to all commissions that allows an out-of-city seat as long as they're in the school district. And so I think that that would apply to the, like if these new commissions fall under that blanket policy, I think it would, yeah.
If I can,
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Barnett, that policy right now will have to be updated. It'll have to be revised because right now it does have specific, it calls out in the exhibits who that applies to. So we would just need to update that. And as far as the appointment by direct appointment, in the past we have had instances, I mean, right now there's a sitting commissioner on the CFAC that is the out of area individual that was Mayor or Councilmember Agramonte's appointment. So it has been where they've appointed someone that was outside of the city limit.
No, I understand that, but the way it's specified in this ordinance, it doesn't, at least the way I read it, could be reading it wrong. It only specifies that as an option for the youth member, and the other, it doesn't specify that. It says qualified electors of the city, period. It so it does
Yeah,
specify
you're right.
that for the youth. Am I reading that correctly? I'm seeing
That's
heads
the way
nod.
it was intended, but
That was the way it was intended, and so I'm just questioning, since it's a first reading, that to get the direction from the council whether or not we'd like to be inclusive and consistent with our other commissions and committees by having an option of one person from outside the city limits.
so I think that our policy, and Rebecca can correct me, is that the overall policy to which these ordinances refer says that for this type of a city commission or committee, each elected council member appoints one person. I don't know if it specifies if that person has to be an elector or it doesn't. And then there are the at-large, which is a youth member separately. So if the council wanted to allow for the direct appointee to reside within the valley generally, we just have to change that language in either or both of them.
Yeah.
I would like to do that.
I would want the policies for all the other commissions to be the same as this. The only thing is, and this has happened before, if an individual council member appoints somebody outside the city and they do it first, then it's over.
Right.
I mean, no one else can do that. So, yeah.
Right.
Which is fine. I mean, that's the way it's worked.
Well,
It
that's
just-
the way,
it just
I mean, if
should
that's
be
the way it works,
consistent.
it's the way it works. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, it's like draft day, sometimes you get your first choice and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Joe Montana went in like the 10th round and he turned out to be pretty good. So, I'm okay with that. I'll bring in a couple of options and
That's great.
go from there.
Mr.
How
Mayor,
many
just a-
members
sorry.
for each in the commission? 5 or 7?
In the case, yeah, it changes. We did it differently
Okay.
because of the two people on the pros. But a question to the council would be, if you want to make changes to the ordinance and still conduct the reading tonight, we need that, craft that language now so we can conduct it so that we don't delay it and have to have an offset there. And remember, you go dark in July, so anything that we want to do, we want to get it done pretty quickly. But again, that's not the order of the day here. So if you want to take your time, have us come back, we can do that. But if we can craft the changes, maybe we come back to this item a little bit later on to make sure we get the right words in.
That's great. Yes. Yeah, Feld, Miss. Oh, sure.
I'm good.
You're good. Let me open to public.
I got a question from a scientific point of view. How many geophysicists do you have on this committee you're talking about?
Could you please go to the approach?
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Can you introduce yourself?
So,
Okay,
Thank you.
my name is David McFarland. I'm a concerned citizen. I want to know how many geophysicists you have on this committee you're talking about putting together.
We haven't appointed anyone to it yet.
yeah, not yet.
We don't know.
Are you intending to do such?
I think this question cannot be answered today because today we just consider discussion and try to and identify any issue. Of course, yeah, your question is, yeah, bring somebody out a little more, you know.
You, you better get somebody who knows what they're talking about, I can assure you of that. And, you know, the physics side of this has to be understood. That's all. I hope I made my point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, here comes a nuclear physicist.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Steuer, Steuer, and I'm here as co-chair of the First Congregational Church of Sonoma's Earth Care Alliance. The Earth Care Alliance is a group of 25 environmental activists from the First Congregational Church, Congregation Shir Shalom, the Methodist Church, and the broader community. The First Congregational Church is a creation justice church, which means the church works to guide the congregation in determining how it can best embody a commitment to care for God's creation. I'm here to support the Council's decision to establish a Climate Action Committee. I want the committee to accelerate the city's commitment to undertaking effective climate action measures. Climate actions must be accelerated now that we are in a code red alert stage of a climate catastrophe. I agree with Greta Thunberg that up until now there has been too much talk and too little climate action by governments at all levels. And quoting from the city's own approved climate emergency resolution, whereas it is inexcusable to do too little, too late, knowingly subjecting our fellow humans now and in the future to societal breakdown, shortages of food and clean water, economic collapse, vast refugee movements, and life on an increasingly uninhabitable planet, the city must make a greater commitment to the countywide climate emergency mobilization strategy that is being implemented by the Regional Climate Protection Authority. And the city must continue its commitment to implement the local climate actions adopted by the city in 2016. We all need to take action now. Many of us are parents and grandparents deeply concerned about the future of our children and grandchildren on this warming earth. We are supportive of our children's trust and the Youth V.Gov lawsuit against the federal government for its inaction against climate change. The Earth Care Alliance will collaborate with the city and its new Climate Action Committee. We will help to mobilize the broader community in support of urgent climate action measures. We want to see innovative, immediate actions to reduce our carbon footprint. We will support you with our deeds and our votes. Due to the demographics of our greater Sonoma Valley, I ask that the council expand committee eligibility to include up to 3 appointees who reside in the Sonoma Valley, but outside the city limits. And please appoint people of diverse backgrounds and life experiences. With the council support, the new Climate Action Committee can bring meaningful, effective climate action here in the city of Sonoma and in the surrounding area. Thank you for your support of this urgent matter.
Thank you.
Members of the council, staff, members of the public, Tom Conlon, 18850 Robinson Road, outside the city limits. I'm in a bit of between a rock and a hard place tonight because I have been urging the city to take action on our climate emergency for going on over 10 years now. And this is now the 3rd reorganization of the city's advisory committee to your body. When this matter was first proposed, this newest committee, I used the phrase rearranging the deck chairs. We are falling behind our county, our state is falling behind the nation and the rest of the world. I was surprised to find that California has our heat pump installations are behind the national average for heat pump growth rates. This is inexcusable for what is supposed to be a green community to be falling so far behind. I feel that the ordinance in front of you could be interpreted, some pieces of it could be interpreted as repealing portions of the climate emergency resolution that a previous council passed. The word emergency was in there. Imagine if we were dealing with our COVID emergency and our economic emergency when COVID hit, as slowly as we're dealing with the climate emergency. It boggles my mind. I also hope that you will expand representation. I appreciate the comments on council members in this direction. And I also feel that this county-wide climate emergency mobilization strategy, there's actually quite a bit of good work that's taken place there in the last 6 months in particular, as that group has coalesced. I feel that the city is not been participating, partly because of your own staff changes and the council's own changes. But I urge you to re-engage with our CPA and the great work that's being done up there. There are a number of template policies that the city could adopt fairly quickly and cost effectively. I specifically mean the energy code, the REACH code for buildings in Sonoma, the all electric REACH code, the electric vehicle charger REACH code, and the new gas station ban, which will actually save staff time by eliminating unnecessary gas station proposals that might be brought forward at some future date. So again, I hope you'll take that information into account as you make your decision tonight. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Tom.
Good evening, everyone. Fred Allebach from 19550 8th Street East. I had expected a lot more people here. Oh, excuse me. Let me take off my mask. I served on the CSEC for 8 or 9 years and enjoyed serving the city very much, as well as the last Climate Action Joint Subcommittee. I have some suggestions here to change the charter specifically to include climate justice. In my public comments that I mailed to the city website, I laid out my supporting arguments for that, and I hope you had a chance to read those. Basically, I would like you to have this commission be, the Climate Action Plan and the Climate Action Commission be consistent with the city's climate emergency resolution and the triple bottom line framing that the climate emergency resolution is based on. And not only as environmental sustainability as it reads in the ordinance now. I think that if you do want to have just environmental sustainability, then I think the city needs to have a specific equity plan, because you already have economic pillar with the chamber and the tourism improvement district. You have an environmental sustainability commission, but where's the equity in the triple bottom line? I hope that you had a chance to look at that Venn diagram and are convinced that that's a meaningful thing. Really, no amount of greenhouse gas reductions are going to matter unless the bottom 20% of people are lifted up. I better hurry up here, I'm running out of time. I'd like to suggest some membership changes. I support 3 members from outside the city. I support choosing for positions and not blank council choices, because the CSEC recommended specific interests to be represented, and hopefully those can be represented, and they may not be if it's just blank council choices. And the membership in the charter calls for a climate justice equity position, but if you read the charter, no one will be able to work on that. So there's an inconsistency in the type of member you're calling for and what the charter of the commission is. So you don't want to have someone come in like me, who when I was on the Climate Justice Subcommittee, and be hammering away on that and find that there's really no intention of addressing that in that forum. So I think either you should eliminate that position of membership or else change the charter so that the commission can address that. I have a client who lives in Valley of the Moon, or Moon Valley, and she's just the kind of person who climate justice would be aimed at in the city. She needs an air conditioner, she needs a roof paint job, she needs help with her electric, she doesn't have a cooler in her place, and she's poor, her car broke down, and she can't go to the doctor, and she's in a hot trailer barely making her rent. Now, whereas climate justice is to address the disparity of the wealthy folks who caused the climate crisis having disproportionate impacts on people like my client in Moon Valley. So that's what climate justice would be. And you can't just hang those folks out to dry. So thanks for giving me an extra 20 seconds. I have a few more things, but I think you got the gist of what I'm saying.
Thank you, Fred. Any more public comments? It looks like none. Okay. All right. Yeah. Let me close.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let me close public comments. Yes.
In the description here of the Climate Action Committee, it says other duties and responsibilities as delegated by the City Council. We could perhaps say, you know, I think that's kind of a catch-all, and perhaps to Mr. Alabak's point, that it certainly could be something, you know, added. I don't think that this this list was meant to be exclusive or discrete, and so I you know, I feel like that if the committee as formed chose to tackle that subject, it would not be inappropriate. I mean, so I don't think we need to change it so much as just acknowledge that. I'm looking to staff to see if I'm on the right track with that.
And that's the case with both committees that we've created. We have that catch-all in there. There's going to be things that are going to come up that we don't even know about right now, and that's going to give us that flexibility to be able to address those issues. You might recall that the CSEC was taking upon itself different activities. Parks, recreation, open space were not addressed. The environment wasn't addressed. And that's why we called it separation, so that we could focus exclusively on climate. And Mr. Mayor, I do believe David and I might have got the places that we could change. If you're interested in having some language, we'll do it on the fly tonight so that we can get the first reading done.
Yeah, if we could just make a motion to that effect, that you know, that this is under the same guidelines as all of our other committees, one person from outside the city limit plus the ex officio members. I'm hearing people wanting to expand the committee. How many people, remind me, are on the Planning Commission?
7.
7. Is that inclusive of an alternate?
No.
No. So it's 7 plus an alternate.
We have the ability to make an appointment to that position.
Correct. So,
Are you planning any alternates for these commissions?
Not as presently constituted in the ordinance. No, we need to add that too.
We could, if we added an alternate, and with the youth person and so forth, I think we could come close to being a little bit more flexible in terms of our representation.
If I can just remind the council, you've got 2 committees. One is the pros.
Right.
That has an arborist. The arborist could certainly come from outside of the area.
Correct.
But again, you've got the 7 and the 6. So depending, just give us the instruction or direction on which one you want to do that. Maybe it's both.
Well, before I get to that, just to follow up on Councilmember Lowe's point about that sort of catch-all, I think in a perfect world, once we get all these commissions sort of reestablished, every commission every year should themselves, with staff collaboration, come up with a work plan, and ultimately that work plan would be approved by the City Council. And so I think that could perhaps address some of the public's concern about that. In terms of residency, I would like all of the commissions, as I said before, to be consistent, and that is 1 member outside the city. In this case, though, I understand other commissions don't have a youth member, and other commissions don't have like an arborist. And the reality is maybe we don't have a qualified arborist in the city limits. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. So that position probably should be Valley. And then youth, I would be okay with youth, as you've, I believe, put in the staff report, being city or Valley, you know, basically school district. And then I would also be okay with then one of our appointments being from the Valley. That's it. And then I mean, I would be okay with that. And ultimately, it might not end up being all from the, I mean, there might not be 3. I mean, all 5 of us may choose someone from the city. We don't know exactly how it's going to work out, but I would be okay with that option.
Councilmember Felder.
A couple of things. First of all, to address Councilmember Lowe's question about alternates, keep in mind that an alternate does not have any participation or voting capability on a commission unless there's a member absent. So you understand that. So, okay.
I believe I'm your alternate on one committee, and I've had that experience personally. So,
But I mean,
no, I
that
understand,
does
sir.
apply.
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
other, I would like to hear from the rest of the council on whether they consider this title thing of commission versus committee is important. To me, it is, because if you establish a new group and you don't give them kind of a level playing field with the other organizations that are designated to report to the council, I think you feel kind of as a lower level. And I think at least the pros should be a commission. I'm not so sure about climate action, but I could go either way on that as well.
I
But
think your point is well taken. I think we should be consistent, just as Vice Mayor Barnett said, with our appointments. I think we should be consistent with the title as well. With both of them. Why not?
And I certainly support having at least the option for an out-of-city participant.
Also, I agree, with the both Councilmember Lowe and the Councilmember Felder. Yeah, we should include more residents. And actually, we are in the city of the Sonoma, and historically, geographically, it's a much bigger area than we should consider. And also, I realize, and residents, even somebody recently I talked with many historian. Most of them they lived out of the city, but they had much more knowledge than the people and lived within the city. So that we can get an opportunity to listen to different voice and a different version. It's good for the city. As to the name, I think this commission should be equally important as the planning commission or other commission. So I prefer to use the same name in a commission. Thank you.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the alternate has to be, for our other commissions, the alternate has to be a city resident?
They're supposed to be, and that was the reason for that was at one time all of the 5 that were directly appointed were had to be residents, and that way the alternate could fill in for that position. And it wasn't in the policy, and when that came up, that as I said, Madeline or Councilmember Agramonte wanted to appoint someone that was outside to the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission. It kind of went by the wayside. They said didn't have to be the case. And listening to some of the things that one thing I would suggest, I was just talking with the city manager, is some of these things you could include in that overreaching policy and bring back as a revision as opposed to individual. They want these all to be consistent.
The goal, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are ordinances, right? And it's easier to change a policy than the municipal code. So I will leave it up to you guys, but the council can always change and sort of refine the policy.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, Madam Clerk, you're saying that even though it was the policy to have the alternate be a resident of the city, we actually have disregarded that and appointed people who are alternates who are outside the city.
Not alternates. The direct appointment.
Oh,
with someone.
the direct appointment, but not the alternate. Still, is always a city resident in every committee.
Yes, and that was something when we had discussed the policy the last time. That was something. There was a question as to why that was the case. And so we were going to look at that in the next time we brought it back as a revision, if the council wanted to look at that policy again. That was one of the things that we were going to ask for.
Yeah,
Through
I think we should look at
through
that.
the mayor.
Yes.
I believe that alternate was supposed to be a city resident to preserve the makeup of the actual sitting commission,
Yeah.
so that you would have at least 4 of the 5 or 6 of the 7 be city residents, and so that's why if one of the other persons is absent, that the alternate takes place of, that would preserve that makeup.
Yes, consistent characteristics. Yeah. Mhm. Yes. So, if any suggestion or
First thing I'm hearing, there could be a motion, should I
Okay.
be reading the tea leaves correctly, that you would direct all changes within the ordinance that we're introducing tonight to substitute the word commission from committee. That'd be the first point. The second part of the motion would be to then direct changes as Mr. Ruderman will now present. Can you do that, David?
So this is so that at least one of the voting members on both the Climate Action Commission and the PROS can be a resident of the Valley, right? So what I would do, and I guess you're recording this so you can refer back to it later, I would remove from the section on composition where it says, and I'm going to read from the PROS, 5 of the committee members shall be voting members, and then I would cross out who shall be qualified electors of the city, and leave in with each city council member making 1 direct appointment. Then I would add a new sentence, 2 new sentences actually, which is how we did it in the Culture and Fine Arts Commission, and say at least, and so this at least for the PROS, at least 4 voting members shall be qualified electors of the city. The remaining voting member may be a qualified elector of Sonoma Valley as defined by the council, commission, and committee appointment policy. And then the same edit would be made to Climate Action Committee under 2.50020. Strike out, it would be, so there it says, oh, it's the same because it's 5 in both of them. So it would be the same change there as well. So that 4 have to be qualified electors, and the remaining may be a qualified elector from the Valley. So they have to be over 18 and registered to vote. But they
Even
don't
the
have to be
youth?
in the city. No, the youth is still. I didn't change anything with the youth. So the youth is a non-voting member, and the youth and the arborist can be also in the Valley.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's, go ahead.
Yeah. So the Vice Mayor Barnett mentioned about the definition using the Sonoma Valley school district, and that.
Yes.
Can we use this
So
or
the way that
just
the way
general?
That and that's in the policy.
Okay.
So the ordinance just says it's in the person has to reside within Sonoma Valley as defined in the policy, and then I think currently it's the district, right? So and then a future council can change that and make it whatever they want within reason.
Okay. Yes.
Is there a legal reason why a person has to be registered to vote to serve on these commissions, pardon me?
Not that I'm aware of.
Can we remove that?
Yeah, and I don't know if qualified elector means they have to be registered or just eligible. It does?
Well, even the eligibility is in question. Because there are people who reside here that are not eligible to vote for one reason or another. And although I encourage everyone to vote, and I hope you all got your ballot and are voting, but I think that that's very restrictive, and I don't see it necessary in this particular case. But I'm just curious if it were a legal reason that we had it.
Yeah, I'm not aware. I haven't researched that recently. I mean, I know there are certainly municipalities that are looking at allowing all sorts of people even the people who aren't citizens, obviously, to vote. So I presume in something like this, there's quite a bit more leeway.
There are people here who are residents who, for one reason or another, have decided that they choose not to register to vote, or they're in the process of that. And I think if we're looking for diversity on our committee, and why put an impediment that might restrict our ability to appoint someone who has a lot to offer.
So we could just, because right now, like for example, with the youth and the arborist, it just says residents.
Yes, I think residence is a good word.
It would be inconsistent with the other commissions.
I understand, and then I would like at future date to look at those, but I think residence is more in line with what we're looking for, personally.
Yes.
It was my impression that the requirement for a qualified elector was a way to establish residency. So that you knew that somebody actually lived within city limits or lived within a school district. Whereas if you don't have that proof of residency in some way, like being a qualified elector, how do you prove it?
Right. So, I mean, people prove where they live all the time without, by showing their
So
PG&E bill or whatever.
I know, but so I guess if you take out the qualified elector, I'd like to have something that says that you have a way to prove residency.
Right. And I think that could be part of our process in the application.
Or in the policy.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily, So, thank you for that. I think that's great.
Yes.
So our city attorney, so I think what I'm hearing my colleagues say, they would like an alternate to be picked from the valley. Is that what I'm hearing?
That was not the proposal that I read out.
So
It did not
what
include
am I-
alternate. It just meant that one of the five
One of the five.
can be from within the valley.
Okay, so what if council members want to appoint others from the county to the board, to the commission? No?
Yeah, based on what was discussed earlier, it would be sort of a first come, first serve with respect to the person who's outside the city limits but within.
So it would only be one person on this commission from outside the city? Okay, and I think somebody should be registered to vote. I'm sort of leaning in the what you have agreed to, Bob, with maybe a PG&E bill, but for me, a person that votes means that they're committed to society. That's a responsibility that you have. So I'm not in favor of that.
I assume you have to be registered to vote to be on the city council or run for city council.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's part of the general law of the state.
That's a legal requirement. This is not that's why I asked, is it a legal requirement?
Well,
It's
I'm
not a
talking,
legal
I'm
requirement.
talking commitment.
And
I'm just talking commitment. I think it says you're committed to society.
I want to share some minor personal experience because I am an immigrant, and the first step is become work legally here, and several years later applying for permanent residency, that is in a green card. And then later on, by immigration law, if you lived here in United States for 5 years, you are eligible to apply for citizenship. That is your choice. And for an immigrant to be and have the right to vote, that is a big issue. And the difference between the green card and the U.S. citizen, major one is the vote and to be voted. That is so I agree with the Sandra Lowe's, and if we just put in a regular general term the residents, and we can attract more people to participate on the local politics. But from another side, and it's kind of the special privilege for the citizen because you can vote and also you can be voted. From the visitor point, I want to say, you lived here, or you have the residence here, and also you have the records and to be as a voter. And according to my, the business, the practice is, if you want to testify or verify your residency, number one, your county's voters registration card. Second is a driver's license. Third, your major bank account. And fourth, that is your credit card statements. And the fifth, your children's school, the registration records. So put everything together, 5 or 6 and 7, or sometimes they went verified. Where do you go to the church? Is a local church here? And in this way, and you can get a complete, the information to determine your residency. That is, from the tax perspective, we are doing like this, just for your reference, and then no any other, purpose.
Thank you, Mayor Ding, and
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
our individual appointments, Councilmember Agramonte, you can, when you choose someone, you can choose someone who reflects, your particular values.
And that was the
Yeah.
goal of the
Yeah.
council to do
Sure.
that.
But if I choose someone who, I just think asking somebody if they're registered to vote, as part of the screening process, I think there's some problems with that. And I personally, I think everyone should be registered to vote who can, but I think there are many people in Sonoma who contribute greatly to our city and to our county, et cetera, who, for one reason or another, may not be registered, may be in the waiting period, as our mayor described. And I'd like to give them a chance if that person, wants to be interested in this. So I appreciate the conversation.
Yes. Any more questions or
I think we're looking for a motion.
any more explanation? Yeah.
Well,
please.
I want to, is the first reading then going to change the word qualified electors to residents of the city in both of them? So that would be part of that would be in the motion if you wanted to
Yeah.
include that.
From I prefer the use residency and the plus the voters, because also it's kind of voters. That means you are willing, and also participate in local politics. So because if you registered as a voter, didn't cost you something. If you want to register it.
I mean, if it were up to me, I think we should move forward with qualified elector. And if we want to talk about this within the policy in the future and to apply to all the other commissions, I think it's worthy of discussion. I don't think this was noticed. I mean, I think that would be sort of a big sort of change for the city of Sonoma to allow non-registered voters to participate in our commissions.
Do we ask them, are you registered to vote?
It is on the application.
It
When
is.
they fill it out, and those are all verified with the county. I don't ask them for a registration card. I send the names and addresses to the county, and they verify, yes, they're registered, or no, they're not.
Yeah, I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
We had a situation on the planning commission where a person was a resident of the city but was not a qualified voter. She had not registered to vote. I think she was registered somewhere back east, and so she was told to either she had to get registered locally or she would have to resign her appointment. And I think to put the burden on city staff and to try to discern whether somebody is a resident or not, with whatever records and a lot of PG&E bills or whatever can be falsified pretty easily, I think. But I think if you can go to the register of voters and say, yes, they are a qualified elector, I think it's a certain thing.
I think it's our responsibility when we make our appointments to be diligent and find people who are not faking their residency. You know, I just find that to be an unbelievable thing that, you know, that I'm going to tell somebody to do that. It's not like you're trying to get in a different school or something where people do strange things. You know, I think asking people if they're registered to vote, you know, it carries with it some other inferences that I think should not be our business. And, you know, I understand we need to change the policy, but in the meantime, I would like to, for the example as given by our mayor, he would not be able to be on our committee while he was waiting for the final citizenship, and yet he was a productive member of our city, and I would not like to eliminate people like that based on that. So I think we can trust people on this. It's not like they're taking an oath of office, and I think it's all of our responsibilities.
They take an oath.
They take an oath of office.
Like on the Constitution of the United States.
Okay.
Without mental reservation.
Well, that's fine. They,
I mean, basically,
but
what
they're
you're
not
saying
elected.
is we should be able to put non-citizens on our commission.
No, non-voters. I didn't say non-citizens. I said non-voters. There's people who don't register to vote for religious reasons. I mean, there are many reasons to not register to vote. I wish to, you know, there are a lot of people not registered to vote, and for whatever reason, I just don't think that that should be our screening process. I would prefer to use something else. I know we're sort of extending our conversation here, but I think we should use something else to screen people to be on our commissions.
A lot of information. Also, let me further, share some of the information. And here is different because here we don't have a lot of immigrants. In the Silicon Valley, in the the South Bay, they always have this kind of issue. So definitely, and a green card holder, and just like the permanent and the resident, and you cannot vote. Only the citizen can vote, select, and the city council member and the mayor. However, some of the city they allowed green card holder make the vote for the school district. So the school district no required for citizenship. That is not. Some certain city is not at all. In a different city, they have different, policy. Yeah.
I'm saying I think it's worthy of discussion. I'm wondering if we could figure out a way to do it and notice it, and because this wasn't part of the agenda. I mean, I'm not saying
clearly
I'm not
it
saying you're
wasn't.
wrong. I'm just saying I want it to be consistent, and we should talk about.
I think I'd like to have our attorney take a look at this and see if asking people if they're registered to vote, see what other cities do, and come back and let us know what would be appropriate, because I certainly don't want anybody to be screened out inappropriately and invite any other issues through our process. I mean, it may have been working all along, but since we're talking about inclusion, I think it's an appropriate conversation. I mean, I'm fine with moving this forward pending some counsel from so we can apply it to all of our committees. But my intent is to make sure that people are not unfairly being judged one way or the other for their choice to register to vote or not.
All right. Yeah.
Or
Thank you
ability.
so much. Any more questions? I would like to take an exemption. Usually, I just open the public comment just only once, but today, I know we have this kind of new message. I want to open the public again. Listen. Yeah. Anything.
Thank you, Mayor Ding. This is a fascinating discussion, and it occurred to me in the context of the Climate Action Commission or Committee and Climate Justice that you have probably 7,000 to 8,000 immigrants who maybe don't even have green cards who could be part of this the Climate Action Commission for the out-of-city resident. And so those would be the exact people who could represent climate justice. And these people are known as essential workers in our economy here. They're integral to Sonoma Valley. So I think that a non-citizen essential worker who's a critical part of our economy and our community here, this would be a perfect opportunity to be on a commission like this. And so I think that this is a really good point that Councilmember Lowe makes, and it's really worthy of further discussion, because that would really be inclusive, essential workers, plus it would loop in climate justice, because those are the people who are bearing the brunt of the climate impacts of people in the first world who have caused the climate crisis in the first place. So those are my comments on that.
All right. Thank you.
Mayor Dang, I appreciate you reopening public comment. And in context of Fred's comments, I would just say I agree with that. In fact, I got off a phone call earlier today with a farm worker group representative who was saying their agricultural people who are working in our community, who are experiencing firsthand how much water is being wasted. And they feel as if they want to contribute to solving the water crisis that we are all facing, but they don't know how to do that right now. And so we're trying to figure out a way to get those voices into the conversation. So I think it's an interesting conversation. I appreciate you having it today. I also sympathize with the residency, proof of residency. Remember, we do have, I had a case where I paid 2 PG&E bills, one inside the city limits, one outside the city limits. I spent enough time in my city office that I could call it a residence, but that would have been unethical for me to do so. But I want to be sure that we don't create those kinds of loophole opportunities, because we want to be consistent in the way that this policy is implemented. Let's see, if I can just sum up by saying I appreciate, Mr. Felder, your comments about the term commission. I think it is important for us to preserve that and to have all the commissions be on an equal footing. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right. Any more? Okay. Yes, be careful.
I'm Susan Carley, and I'm a member of the Earth Care Alliance. And I so appreciate that you're considering diversity and inclusion and looking at changing the term to residents so that people are really looked at on what they can bring to the commission. I also appreciate the making it equal by calling it a commission and not lowering the name to committee. And that you are all here to listen to the importance of us preserving this beautiful environment that we live in for our children and grandchildren. It's such an urgent matter. If you haven't had the opportunity to see the movie, Youth v. Gov, it's very informative about where we are with the climate crisis. I learned a lot from it. Or the movie Breaking Boundaries. They're both available on Netflix. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? All right, let me close public comment. So, yes.
Mr. Mayor, I just have some a recommendation for you.
Yes.
So first of all, I would refer to my first comment about a motion that would modify the introduction of the ordinance to substitute the word committee with commission. Secondly, I'd like to have you support the modification to Climate Action Committee responsibility number 1, as I outlined, to delete the latter part of that sentence. And then the third part would be to add into the motion the changes that were read into the record by the city attorney. Excuse me, and then a request absent the ordinance, outside of the scope of the ordinance, but to direct staff to return at a later date to address the issue of the broader question about memberships relative to the policy, if that's your council's direction.
And if at a future meeting we discuss that, can that be applied to the policy rather than the code? Or
that's what I was going to recommend, but
yeah,
that's what I thought the intent was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. Do you have more comments? Yeah. How about you? Okay. Nothing.
I have a comment.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to thank again staff for all their hard work on this. I'm very excited about this because obviously, it's very important to establish a climate action committee, and I'm very excited about that. It's also, I think, it hasn't really gotten a lot of discussion tonight, but I'm also very excited about the pros. All of our parks in our city, our Montini Preserve, our Overlook Trail, the Plaza, etc. To have a group of commissioners just focus on making life better with our natural open spaces within the city for the residents are also very exciting. And so I just want to again thank Sue and David for this suggestion. And I think this is a really good thing for the city that we're going to do tonight.
Yes. Yeah. Wonderful comments. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm sorry we didn't get to say more, about the substance of it and got into the sort of details of the structure. But, sometimes when that happens, it's just serendipitous that, other good things happen as a result of other good things. So I just want to thank everyone's indulgence on me taking you down that trail a little bit. But I think if we can clean up our policies with regard to all of our commissions going forward, I think that will make us all happy. We'll be a more inclusive, and we'll get better input from these wonderful commissions. If we, and it's up to us to choose good people to recommend. So ultimately. Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone. So in this way, we don't need to make a motion.
I would suggest you say a motion based on what I outlined.
Sure. So anyone want to make the motion? Just copy the David.
I will make the motion. I move that we adopt an ordinance amending Sonoma Municipal Code Title II, as described in the staff report.
Yeah, I'll introduce.
I'm sorry. I'll start over. I move that we take action to introduce an ordinance amending Sonoma Municipal Code Title II, as described in our staff report with the amendments of Planning Director Storer.
And City Attorney.
And the City Attorney.
Yes.
D's 2 and 5.
That's great. Who can second?
I will second that.
A roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Barnett.
Aye.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
I like the idea of commission, naming a commissioner, but I vote no on this.
Mayor.
Yeah, using the term of the commission instead of a committee.
Mayor Dean.
It's just a statement. You don't have to write it anywhere.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-1.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, that was with regard to the introduction of the ordinance.
Introduction ordinance.
Your council may wish to provide direction on the other component relating to the policy.
Okay.
Should you wish.
All right.
And the reason I voted no is I'm unclear about where it's going, what we're talking about. There were a lot of opinions or personal life experiences in this, and I'm not comfortable at this point. I don't know how it's going to end up. Thank you.
So any comments or any? I think everything is clear. Let's move to the next one. Point 2, adding a new chapter, 2.5. Climate and action. Oh, this one already? Yeah, we already. Oh, yeah. This one we already. Yes. That is the, basically we already finished. That is the next is the 7.1 and City Council and report and comments.
I have a report at Zero Waste. Travis Wagner and I are sustainability person who will go with me. He's away right now, but we'll be visiting Sebastopol, who just opened up of CRV, which I think is really great. They have staff that mans it. I spoke to the manager of Safeway, and he says Safeway's already being sued by 2 cities because they don't recycle. But they are doing something. It's a little tedious the way they're doing it, but he's a great guy. The other thing is, Lisa Jansen and I are going to attend a conference in San Rafael with respect to homeless. Andrew Henning has invited us to attend this, and I'm so excited because I serve on COC, and it'll be great to see what other cities have done. And I know that Andrew worked in San Rafael and also Petaluma. He gives some advice. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed about the results of what that will bring. And doubled with what we're going to do at COC and that meeting, it would be great to understand what's happening in the world around us with respect to homeless. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. And also I dedicated this meeting to Rose Marie Pedranzini. I hope if some of you remember her attending this meeting, she and her husband Benny, it was like, Benny, I know you didn't want me to swear, but damn it, Benny, I'm mad. And he would just cringe. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lowe, any report? Oh, yes.
I attended the board meeting for Sonoma Clean Power on the 5th of May, and it very, very informative. They always have a section on regulatory updates and legislative updates, and it's very interesting to see all the manipulations that are going on in the power industry. Under the regulatory updates, as we might have expected, the wildfire mitigation plans were deemed totally inadequate, that they were going after the very easy targets to spend all the money instead of doing the hard ones first, the ones that are most likely to cause the most damage. And then followed up with the idea that PG&E is now going to be proposing significant rate increases in the near future. So in the distribution part of the equation, in other words, they're trying to make the clean power organizations suffer as much as they can because they have to provide the distribution for the clean power organizations. In the legislative updates, they're encouraging support for establishing climate resilience districts, which would give, I think, the clean power organizations much more authority to and credence to move ahead. There's also a legislative update to offer incentives to provide more public EV charging infrastructure to the tune of at least $800,000 so if anybody wants to take advantage of that. And there's a clean energy bill out there where they're proposing now interim targets and a trust fund to help low-income families pay their utility bills. So that's all I have.
Yes. Thank you. Vice Mayor Council, All right. Okay, so now let's move to next agenda. Number 8, city manager comments and announcement.
Great. So I just wanted to circle back to our parklet discussion last week, and you had provided direction to meet with, me to meet with Chief Aker and Chief Rodriguez about the First Street closure. And so I met with them, and they definitely want this street back open. Right now,
we actually have one restaurant that is encroaching on the street space, but that will be moved back shortly. So they can get a fire truck in there, but they definitely want it open. That was their intention, that it would only be temporary. They said that they would be open to it being extended through the end of November, but then they want it back open. So I just wanted to provide that information. And the other thing is Springs draft EIR and the specific plan. Today the county released a notice of availability for a draft program EIR for the Springs specific plan. It also released the corresponding draft specific plan. The draft program EIR is almost 1,100 pages, and the draft specific plan is 153 pages. So the County Planning Commission will hold a virtual only meeting on June 16th at 1 p.m. regarding the adequacy and accuracy of the DEIR, and it's coming midway through the public comment period from May 18th through July 19th. Planning Department staff will be reviewing the document over the next few weeks and will coordinate with me regarding any responses the city may wish to provide, and then I can report to the City Council and determine if the council wishes to provide formal comments.
Yes.
Ms. Casey, does LAFCO have any thoughts about weighing in on this, or they're not involved at all?
They're not involved at all. If you may recall that the LAFCO actually has 2 members of the Board of Supervisors on it. Will be the ultimate body, the whole Board of Supervisors, when they adopt the specific plan and obviously do the EIR before it.
Well, I think that MSR that I've been reading is great reading. I'm loving it. It's another education. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have. And then Rebecca Hessek.
Just a update. We had went out to for recruitment for the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Commission and for the planning alternate. We only received one application for the planning alternate, but that person has since removed themselves from consideration. So we need to open that back up. Just giving you guys a update on that. And then the Citizens Advisory Commission, we received, I think it was 6 or 7 applications that will be appointed through the mayoral process with Mayor Ding and one other council member. And I believe he was going to ask you, Vice Mayor Barnett, to participate in interviews of those, and then that would be brought back to the council for ratification.
That's good. Yeah. So do you have the time frame this month or the next?
I just need to set up a time with the 2 of you to review questions and get the interview set.
Okay. Later on, I will work with the council and we go through. Thank you. Any more comments and announcements? No? Okay. This one is for the city attorney. Yeah.
Just a quick update. I'm not sure if you guys have heard. If you recall, I think in January, we brought before you a proposed resolution to oppose an initiative that was going to be circulated by the California Business Roundtable. It was sort of a Prop 218 on steroids, and your council decided not to support it because it hadn't even gone to the signature. It hadn't gathered enough signatures. Well, as far as we understand, it looks like they failed to meet the signature threshold after spending $10 million. So there hasn't been an official announcement yet from them that they're withdrawing it, but it looks like they may try to bring it back in a couple of years, but it looked cautiously optimistic that thing was
So
defeated.
what I know about it, because I do this for a living, and I removed that for this reason, because I am working on a ballot measure, and so I know very much, I know how many signatures everybody has and how much they're paying on the street every single minute of every single day. And they've lowered their price. They're still on the street, and they're talking about 2024. So what happens is if you don't make the deadline to turn in your signatures, you can continue to collect signatures and still meet the threshold, but it will be applied to the next election. So that's what they're talking about doing. And we'll see. There's actually another initiative that's doing the same thing.
And what was the topic of this? Just remind me what the initiative
It
was
was
about.
like a Prop 218 on steroids. So it was
And what was
basically
Prop
going, it was going to require local governments to get a 2/3 majority approval for everything that could potentially be called a tax at any time.
Yeah. Yes.
It was going to severely limit the ability of local governments to have revenues whatsoever. So it was basically going to close everything that they thought was a loophole that had developed through the courts since '96, basically. All the cases that we've heard.
Yeah, Sinclair was the big one.
Yeah, Sinclair Paint.
Sinclair Paint was the big one. They've been trying to go after that for.
Well, that was, Prop 226 was
yeah.
intended to.
All right. Yes. Is it done, right? Okay. Agenda number 10, adjourn. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.